Imagine a stadium, a massive modern arena, think Wembley or, the Superdome, fill every single seat.
Okay.
Now imagine every single person in that stadium is suffering from a specific systemic physiological failure.
Mm-hmm.
Now zoom out. Fill 10,000 of those stadiums. That is the scale we are talking about today. Over 1 billion people.
A billion. It's a number that's so big it almost loses its meaning.
It does, and we're looking at a global phenomenon where these billion people are walking around with a critical nutrient deficiency. And the terrifying part for me isn't the number, it's the silence.
Yes.
The vast majority of them have absolutely no idea they're compromised.
It is staggering when you actually look at the raw epidemiology.
Mm.
And what keeps me up at night isn't the people who are, acute, the ones in hospital beds with obvious pathology.
We got the clear-cut cases.
Exactly. It's the walking wounded. These are people going to work, raising their kids, training for marathons even.
Yeah.
Yet they are operating at this constant metabolic deficit.
So they just feel off.
They feel off. That's the perfect word for it. Not quite right. But because the symptoms whisper rather than shout, the root cause gets missed. For years, sometimes for decades.
Whisper rather than shout. I mean, it's a poetic way to describe what is really a biological disaster. It sounds like a ghost in the machine. But let's ground this for a second. We aren't talking about some rare tropical disease. We are diving deep today into vitamin D deficiency.
Right.
And before anyone rolls their eyes and thinks, okay, sure, drink milk and go outside, I want to frame this correctly. We are talking about a mismatch, a fundamental mismatch between our Paleolithic biology and our modern industrialized world.
That is the perfect framing. I mean, if the solution were simply go outside, we wouldn't have 1 billion people deficient. It's an evolutionary mismatch.
We're cavemen in a box.
We're essentially cavemen living in hermetically sealed boxes. Our biochemistry expects, 12 hours of sunlight? We give it 12 hours of blue light from screens?
And the result is this silent epidemic.
A silent epidemic that affects everything. I mean, everything. From your genome right up to your mood.
So our mission for this deep dive is to bridge that gap. We aren't just going to list symptoms. We're going to decode the biochemistry behind it. We're going to break down the 5 silent signs your body's crying out for this nutrient, bust the myth that it's even a vitamin at all, and then give you the specific clinically backed protocol to actually fix it.
Exactly. We need to move past the eat your fortified cereal advice from the 70s and really understand the hormonal mechanisms that are at play here.
And since you're the one with the clinical practice and years of patient data, you're going to guide us through the physiology.
I'll do my best.
And I'm here to push back, to clarify, and to make sure we translate all that science into a strategy people can actually use. So let's start with the basics. The classification. You corrected me before we started recording when I called it a vitamin. Let's double click on that. Why is vitamin D a misnomer?
It's probably the biggest branding mistake in medical history. I mean, by strict definition, a vitamin is an organic compound. Usually it's a cofactor for an enzyme that our bodies cannot produce.
You have to eat it.
You have to ingest it. Think vitamin C. If you don't eat citrus or peppers, you get scurvy. Your body cannot manufacture vitamin C from scratch.
Right.
Vitamin D is completely different. It's technically, it's a prohormone.
A prohormone. Okay, that word alone implies a whole different level of systemic regulation. It's not just a simple antioxidant.
Precisely. It is a precursor to a powerful steroid hormone. Your body actually manufactures it through a photosynthetic reaction. It's incredible.
Photosynthetic, like a plant.
Very much so. When UVB rays from the sun hit the cholesterol in your skin, specifically a molecule called 7-dehydrocholesterol, it triggers a thermal isomerization.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Break that down.
It just means you are literally turning cholesterol into a hormone precursor using solar energy. We are, in a very real sense, solar-powered.
Which, by the way, is a great reason not to demonize cholesterol entirely, right? We literally need it as the substrate, the raw material for this entire process.
100%. If you have 0 cholesterol, you have 0 vitamin D synthesis. It's that simple. But here is the nuance that almost everyone misses. The vitamin D your skin makes, or the vitamin D you take in a pill, is biologically inert.
Inert, so it does nothing.
It does absolutely nothing. It's just potential energy at that point.
Okay, so it's like a key that hasn't been cut yet.
That's a great analogy. It has to undergo a 2-step activation process. First, it travels through the bloodstream to the liver.
Step 1.
The liver adds what's called a hydroxyl group to it, turning it into calcidiol. That's the 25-OHD that we measure in blood tests. That's the storage form.
But even that isn't the active hormone.
Not even close. From the liver, it has to go to the kidneys to get another hydroxyl group. That turns it into calcitriol. And that final molecule, 1025-dihydroxyvitamin D, that is the active steroid hormone.
And structurally, I've heard it looks really similar to things like testosterone or cortisol.
It does. It fits right into that family of steroid hormones, which explains why its impact is so incredibly broad.
Right. Because if it's a steroid hormone, it has that special ability to cross cell membranes and go straight to the nucleus, doesn't it?
That is the key insight. Most vitamins, they work in the cytoplasm of the cell, helping enzymes do their job. Vitamin D bypasses all that surface machinery.
It's got an all-access pass.
It has an all-access pass. It goes into the nucleus. It binds to something called the vitamin D receptor, the VDR. And that complex literally attaches to your DNA.
To your genes.
To your genes. It unzips the code to transcribe proteins. And here's the kicker. We have found these receptors in nearly every single tissue type in the human body.
Every tissue. You're not exaggerating.
I am not. Brain, heart, gut, immune cells, pancreas, muscles. A major study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism confirmed this vast network. It regulates the expression of over 1,000 genes.
1,000 genes.
So when you are deficient, you aren't just low on a vitamin. It's the wrong way to think about it. You are dealing with a systemic downregulation of genetic expression. It's like you're trying to run a complex software program with half the code missing.
Okay, that puts the whole epidemic into perspective. If it regulates that many genes, the symptoms could be, well, anything.
It can be incredibly varied.
But we've narrowed it down to the 5 most common, most silent signs. So let's amplify those whispers. What is the first signal that listeners might be ignoring right now?
The first one is, without a doubt, the most common complaint I hear in my clinic, yet it's the most misunderstood. Persistent fatigue. I call it the energy crash.
Now, I want to push back a little on the fatigue aspect because tiredness is probably the most generic symptom in all of medicine.
It is.
You could have sleep apnea, low iron, low thyroid, or just be burnt out from working 60 hours a week.
Oh.
So how do we clinically distinguish vitamin D fatigue from standard burnout? Is there a specific physiological signature?
That's a very fair challenge. And you're right, you can't diagnose based on feeling tired alone. However, the quality of the fatigue is often distinct. In the clinical literature, we see a strong correlation between low D and a specific type of skeletal muscle fatigue. It's a myopathy.
Myopathy. So muscle-related.
Yes. It's not just I'm sleepy, it's my limbs feel heavy. It's a kind of cellular exhaustion where rest doesn't seem to restore you. You wake up feeling like you haven't slept.
So it's somatic, not just cognitive. You feel it in the actual gravity of your body.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
biologically, this goes right back to the mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell.
It's a cliche because it's true. Mitochondria are the organelles that generate ATP, the energy currency of all life. We now know that the vitamin D receptor directly regulates the expression of enzymes involved in oxidative phosphorylation.
Which is the fancy term for making energy.
It's the process of making that energy. So if you're deficient, your mitochondrial efficiency just drops off a cliff. You're burning fuel, but the engine is sputtering.
You're pressing the gas pedal, but the spark plugs are misfiring.
That's a great analogy. There was a study, I believe, in the North American Journal of Medical Sciences that actually quantified this. They found that patients with vitamin D levels below 20 ng/ml had fatigue scores 40% higher than those with optimal levels.
40%. I mean, that's not a subtle difference. That is the difference between going to the gym after work and collapsing on the couch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a massive difference in quality of life. I had a patient, let's call her Sarah, a 38-year-old teacher. She came to me convinced she had early onset dementia or maybe severe hypothyroidism.
Oh.
She said, I sleep 8 hours, but I wake up feeling like I ran a marathon in my sleep. She was relying on 4, sometimes 5 cups of coffee just to function. And by 2 p.m., she said she'd hit a wall so hard she could barely grade papers.
And what would a patient like that normally be told? Reduce stress, maybe get put on an antidepressant.
Exactly what happened. 3 other doctors had told her it was stress or, quote, just part of being a working mom. So we ran her panel. Her thyroid was perfect. Iron, ferritin, all perfect. Her vitamin D, it was 14 ng/ml.
14. So severely deficient.
Dangerously so. We put her on a high-dose protocol, which we'll get into the details of later. We didn't change her job. We didn't change her diet immediately. We just fixed the hormone.
And what happened?
It took about 8 weeks for her blood levels to normalize, but by week 10, she sent me an email. She said the fog had lifted. She had her battery back. She felt like a different person.
That lag time is interesting. It wasn't an overnight fix.
No. And that's absolutely crucial for you to understand. You are rebuilding mitochondrial enzyme density. You are literally changing gene expression. That takes biological time. It's not like caffeine where you feel it in 20 minutes. You are repairing the factory floor.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to the second sign. This one feels incredibly relevant, especially given the, post-pandemic world we're all living in.
Sign number 2 is frequent infections and slow healing. I call this the shield function.
So this is the person who catches every single cold that circulates in the office.
Yes. If someone sneezes on the 3rd floor and you get sick on the 1st floor, that's a red flag. But it's actually more specific than that. It's about the response of your immune system. Vitamin D is what activates your T cells,
The killer
the
cells.
special ops of the immune system. Naive T cells, those are the ones that haven't been assigned a target yet, they actually have vitamin D receptors on their surface.
Okay.
They remain dormant, kind of sleeping in the barracks, until they detect a threat. But here is the kicker. To transition from a naive cell to an active killer cell, they require vitamin D. If you're deficient, the alarm rings, but the soldiers don't wake up.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought. The invasion is happening, and the army is asleep at the switch.
It gets even deeper. Vitamin D also regulates the production of our own antimicrobial peptides, specifically one called cathelicidin.
Cathelicidin.
It's encoded by the CAMP gene. And cathelicidin is like your body's own internal broad-spectrum antibiotic. It literally ruptures the cell walls of bacteria and viruses.
So without enough D, you can't properly express the gene to make your own antibiotic.
Correct. Your innate defenses are down. And that's why we see such a strong, undeniable correlation with respiratory infections. A massive meta-analysis in the British Medical Journal looked at over 11,000 participants. It found that supplementation reduced the risk of acute respiratory infection by up to 50% in the most deficient people.
50%? That's not a supplement effect. That's a drug-level efficacy number.
It is huge. And we saw this play out during the pandemic, didn't we? Observational data consistently showed that patients with levels above 30 ng/ml had much milder courses of illness compared to those with severe deficiency.
Right.
It's not a cure-all, let's be very clear, but it modulates the immune response. It prevents it from being too weak, but it also helps prevent the cytokine storm, where the immune system overreacts and causes damage.
What about the slow healing part of this? You mentioned that alongside the infections.
Yes, and this is often ignored. I see it all the time in diabetics or post-surgical patients. If you have a cut that takes 3 weeks to close, or a bruise that seems to last for a month, that is a sign of poor tissue regeneration.
Why is that?
Vitamin D regulates the cells involved in wound repair, the fibroblasts and keratinocytes. It helps manage inflammation and promotes the growth of new skin. I've seen chronic wounds that have stalled for months suddenly start to granulate and close once we corrected the patient's D status. It's like turning the power back on for the repair crew.
Okay, so that's the shield. Sign number 3. This is one that I think so many people, myself included sometimes, just misattribute to getting older.
Absolutely. This might be the most insidious one. Sign number 3 is unexplained bone or muscle pain. This is what we call the structure signal.
And we aren't talking about sharp pain from an injury, are we? This is a different quality of pain.
It's a very different quality. It's a deep, throbbing ache. Patients often point to their shins, their ribs, or their lower back. Say, I feel like my bones ache. And biologically, they're not wrong.
This brings us back to calcium, which is the classic, textbook association with vitamin D.
It does. And here's the mechanism, and it's so important to understand. You can drink gallons of milk, you can eat all the kale in the world, but without vitamin D, your intestines simply cannot absorb that calcium effectively.
So it just passes through.
Largely, yes. With adequate vitamin D, you absorb about 30 to 40% of the calcium you eat. Without it, you absorb maybe 10 to 15%.
So you are technically becoming malnourished in calcium, even if your diet is perfect.
Yes, and the body has a very strict hierarchy of needs. Calcium is needed for your heart to beat and for your nerves to fire. That is absolutely non-negotiable.
The lights have to stay on.
Lights have to stay on. Strong bones are a luxury. A beating heart is a necessity. So if your blood levels of calcium drop even a tiny bit, your parathyroid glands scream, emergency.
Okay.
They release something called parathyroid hormone, or PTH. And PTH goes to your skeleton and stimulates osteoclasts, those are the cells that break down bone, to literally dissolve your bone matrix and release calcium into the blood.
You are cannibalizing your own skeleton just to keep your heart beating.
That is the brutal, honest reality. And that aching sensation people feel, that's the periosteum, the sensitive covering of the bone becoming sensitized as the bone demineralizes. The bone is literally softening.
Which in children is rickets.
In children, it's rickets. In adults, we call it osteomalacia, which literally means soft bones.
You mentioned a practical way to check for this, the sternum test.
Yes, this is a quick clinical hack. It's not a perfect diagnostic, but it's a good clue. You take your thumb and you press firmly on your sternum, your breastbone.
Right in the center of the chest.
Just right in the center. Not hard enough to bruise yourself, but firm pressure. If that elicits pain, not just the feeling of pressure, but a sharp or a dull ache, that is highly suggestive of osteomalacia. A healthy bone should not hurt when you press on it.
I can imagine thousands of people listening right now pressing on their chests.
It's a good screen. But the pain also affects the muscles. This is the myopathy we touched on earlier. It tends to manifest as proximal muscle weakness.
Proximal meaning closer to the center of the body.
Exactly. So weakness in the hips and shoulders. The classic sign is difficulty standing up from a chair without using your arms for support or trouble climbing stairs.
You had a case with a yoga enthusiast, right? Someone who should be strong and flexible.
Yes, a wonderful 67-year-old woman, a lifelong active person, a yoga teacher. She started noticing she couldn't get up from the floor during her class without struggling.
And she blamed her age.
She just assumed, well, I'm almost 70, this is the decline. She was actually ready to quit teaching. We tested her. Her level was 12 ng/ml.
That number keeps coming up. 12, 14. These are just basement level numbers.
It's shockingly common. We fixed her levels, and within about 3 months, the weakness resolved. The pain went away. She went back to teaching her class. It wasn't age. It was a treatable biochemical deficiency. And we have to stop normalizing decline when it might just be fixable.
I love that. Don't normalize decline. Okay, sign number 4. This one takes us out of the body and into the brain. Mood changes and depression.
This is where the science has just exploded in the last decade. We used to think D was just for bones. Now we know there are VDRs, those receptors, packed into the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex.
The emotional and executive centers of the brain.
The very same. So when people talk about winter blues or SAD, seasonal affective disorder, it isn't just psychological. It is deeply physiological.
How does that work? What's the mechanism?
Vitamin D activates the gene for an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase 2. That's a mouthful. But it's the rate-limiting enzyme that converts tryptophan from your diet into serotonin.
Serotonin, the happiness molecule.
Your mood regulator,
Yeah.
If you don't have enough vitamin D, you cannot efficiently make serotonin in the brain. It's a bottleneck.
So you literally lack the raw materials for a stable mood.
Correct. And it also affects dopamine, the motivation and reward molecule. So when D levels drop, specifically in the winter when UVB radiation is basically zero in many places, we see a spike in anxiety, irritability, and that flat, unmotivated feeling. A study in the journal Medical Hypotheses years ago strongly argued that SAD is simply the psychiatric manifestation of acute vitamin D deficiency.
That reframes the entire condition from something you just have to endure to something you can potentially fix.
It really does. I had a high-powered executive, a 42-year-old woman, incredibly sharp, successful, but she started feeling flat, as she put it, losing interest in her work, this vague anxiety she couldn't shake. She was on the verge of starting an SSRI, an antidepressant.
Okay.
But her therapist was astute enough to ask for blood work first. Her vitamin D level was 18 ng/ml.
Just borderline severe.
We started supplementation. We held off on the SSRI. We just said, let's give this 8 weeks and see. Her mood lifted significantly. She described it as the color coming back into the world. Now, I have to be very clear here. Vitamin D is not a replacement for psychiatric care in cases of severe clinical depression. But trying to treat depression while the brain is inflamed and vitamin D deficient is like trying to run a marathon with a broken leg. You have to fix the biological foundation first.
It removes the biological friction so that therapy or whatever other intervention can actually work.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, sign number 5. You called this one the vanity signal.
I did. It's hair loss. If you really want to get people's attention, tell them they might be going bald.
Sadly, it's true. It works.
The hair follicle is this incredible mini organ that cycles through phases of growth, which is called anagen, and shedding, which is telogen. The vitamin D receptor is crucial for initiating the anagen or growth phase.
So it tells the hair to start growing.
It kicks off the process. If you are deficient, the follicle gets kind of stuck in the resting phase and eventually just sheds.
So the body is budgeting its resources. Hair is non-essential for survival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The body says, look, I need this calcium for the heart. I really don't care about your ponytail right now. We see this specifically in women with a condition called telogen effluvium, which is stress-related shedding. If their D levels are low, say under 30 ngml, the regrowth is incredibly slow or sometimes non-existent.
So if you're out there buying expensive biotin shampoos and hair masks, but your D is at 20, you're basically wasting your money.
You're painting a house that is actively on fire.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fix the internal chemistry first.
Okay, so those are the 5 big ones: fatigue, infections, pain, mood, and hair loss. Now, let's talk about who is at risk. We mentioned latitude earlier, living north of the 37th parallel, but I want to dig into the physics of this because I think people assume if the sun is out, they are making vitamin D.
That is the single biggest misconception out there. It's not just about sun, it's about the angle of the sun. We need UVB radiation specifically. And UVB is a shorter wavelength that is very easily filtered by the Earth's atmosphere. If the sun is low in the sky, which it is for the entire winter in places like Boston or Seattle, or early morning and late afternoon anywhere, the sun's rays have to travel through much more atmosphere to reach you. And that atmosphere filters out all the UVB. It just bounces off.
So the old rule of thumb, if your shadow is longer than you are tall,
You're making zero vitamin D. It does not matter if it's a beautiful, cloudless, sunny day. If that zenith angle is low, you are getting plenty of UVA, which ages your skin, but you are getting absolutely no UVB, which is what makes the hormone.
which means for a huge portion of the world's population, for 4 to 6 months of the year, it is biologically impossible to make vitamin D from the sun.
Impossible. And that brings us to sunscreen, which is a catch-22.
It is. We're told to wear it to prevent skin cancer, which is obviously critical.
It is. But an SPF of 30, which is pretty standard, blocks about 95 to 99% of vitamin D synthesis. So we're blocking the bad, but we're also blocking the essential.
Let's talk about the obesity factor. We mentioned earlier that it's a massive risk factor. Is this just because people with a higher BMI might be more sedentary or indoors, or is there a specific metabolic sink happening?
It's a biophysical issue. It's a process called sequestration. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, or lipophilic. It loves fat tissue. If you have a BMI over 30, or just a high body fat percentage, your adipose tissue acts like a giant sponge.
A sponge.
When you make vitamin D in your skin or you take it in a pill, the fat cells greedily suck it up and hold on to it.
So it's migrating out of the blood where it needs to be and getting locked away in the vault.
Exactly. It becomes bio-unavailable. It's sitting there in the bank, but you can't spend it. And this effectively dilutes the concentration in your bloodstream. It also means that the standard dosing guidelines you see on bottles are fundamentally flawed for anyone with a higher body weight.
So the one-size-fits-all RDA is totally useless here.
Completely useless. If I give a standard 2,000 IU dose to someone who is 250 pounds versus someone who is 120 pounds, the outcome will be dramatically different. For the heavier individual, that dose might just vanish into the adipose tissue before it ever even gets to the liver for conversion.
So they might need a much higher dose just to get the same blood level.
Much higher. We often have to use dosing multipliers, sometimes 2 or 3 times the standard dose, just to saturate the fat tissue and get the blood levels up into the optimal range. It's a crucial insight that most practitioners miss.
That is a huge takeaway. Okay, now let's get to the hard numbers. I'm listening to this. I'm worried. I go to my doctor. What is the exact test I need to ask for?
You need to be very specific. You ask for the 25-hydroxyvitamin D test, sometimes written as 25-OHD.
Okay.
Do not let them test the 1025-dihydroxy form. That's the active hormone, and it's very tightly regulated by the body. It can actually look normal even when you are severely deficient in the storage form because the body is pumping it out as a last resort. You want the storage form, 25-OHD.
And the range. This is where it gets controversial. My lab report says anything over 30 is normal.
The tyranny of the normal range. Normal on a lab report just means you fall within the statistical average of the generally sick population they tested. Or it means you're not going to get full-blown rickets. It does not mean optimal.
So what's optimal?
Here is the breakdown based on functional medicine and, more importantly, all-cause mortality data. This is what the science says. Less than 20 ngml is severely deficient. This is the danger zone. High risk of all the symptoms we just discussed.
Okay.
20 to 30 ngml is insufficient. You're surviving, but you are not thriving. Your immune system is not at its peak.
This is where most people probably are.
This is where a huge chunk of the population lives. The sweet spot, the target we're aiming for, is 40 to 60 ngml. This is the range where we see optimal immune function, the lowest cancer risk in observational studies, and the best athletic performance.
So we are aiming for 40 to 60, not 31.
Not 31. Aim for the middle of that optimal range. And don't worry about toxicity unless you are pushing well over 100 or 150 ng/ml, which is very, very hard to do by accident.
Right, you'd have to be taking massive doses for months on end.
Correct. And you cannot get toxic from the sun. The body has a brilliant shutoff switch. Once you have enough, sunlight starts to degrade the excess vitamin D in your skin.
Okay, let's fix it. We have the diagnosis, we have the target number. What is the protocol? We know food is weak. You said you'd need to eat 30 eggs a day to get a therapeutic dose.
You would. Food is great for maintenance once your levels are good, but it will almost never correct a true deficiency.
So we are talking about supplements, but the supplement aisle is, frankly, a nightmare. It's so confusing. D2 versus D3, does it matter?
It matters more than almost anything else. This is non-negotiable. Vitamin D2, or ergocalciferol, is plant-based, usually from irradiated mushrooms. It binds poorly to the vitamin D binding protein in your blood and has a much shorter half-life.
So it's weaker and doesn't stick around.
Precisely. Vitamin D3, or cholecalciferol, is the animal form. It is the exact form your body makes from sunlight. Studies have shown that D3 is approximately 87% more effective at raising and maintaining blood levels than D2.
87% is not a small difference.
It's massive. So you always check the label for D3. If your doctor ever prescribes that high dose, 50,000 IU green pill, which is usually D2, ask for a D3 alternative instead.
Okay, D3 is the clear winner. Now, for what might be the million-dollar secret of this whole deep dive, the cofactors. We teased this magic trio earlier. If you just take D3 by itself, you might actually be creating a new problem, right?
This is where we separate the amateurs from the pros. Vitamin D does not work in a vacuum. It's part of a complex system. And the first cofactor is magnesium. Every single enzymatic step we discussed, converting sunlight in the skin, converting D in the liver, converting D in the kidney, every single one of those steps requires magnesium as a cofactor.
So if you don't have enough magnesium, the whole assembly line shuts down.
It grinds to a halt. Or if you take high doses of vitamin D, you are revving up that machinery. You will burn through your magnesium stores very quickly.
So you could actually induce a magnesium deficiency by taking vitamin D.
Yes. And the symptoms of magnesium deficiency include heart palpitations, anxiety, and muscle cramps. I have so many patients who start taking vitamin D, get heart palpitations, and they stop, thinking they're allergic to it. No, you just ran out of magnesium, and up to 50% of the population is already deficient in magnesium to begin with.
So you have to pair them.
You must pair them. And the second partner in this dance is vitamin K2.
Okay, I heard so much about this one.
K2 is the traffic cop. Think of it this way. Vitamin D's job is to increase calcium absorption from your gut. Great. But once that calcium's in your blood, where does it go?
You want it in your bones and teeth.
You want it in your bones and teeth. You do not want it depositing in your arteries, creating kidney stones, or calcifying your heart valves. Vitamin K2 activates a protein called matrix Glay protein, or MGP. This protein's job is to grab calcium out of the bloodstream and physically direct it into the bone matrix. It keeps it out of your soft tissues.
So K2 is what ensures the calcium ends up on the construction site, not clogging up the highway.
That is the perfect analogy. Without enough K2, taking high-dose vitamin D could theoretically increase the calcification of your arteries. With K2, it actually helps prevent it. So the protocol is always D3 plus K2 plus magnesium.
Are there specific forms of those we should look for?
Yes, for magnesium, glycinate or citrate are good, well-absorbed forms. Glycinate is usually a bit easier on the stomach for people. For vitamin K2, you want to look for the MK7 form, which has a longer half-life and is more effective.
Okay, so let's summarize the full treatment protocol.
Test your 25 OHD to know your starting point. Don't guess.
Number 1, always.
2. Supplement with D3, cholecalciferol. The dose will vary, but for many adults, 2,000 to 5,000 IU daily is a good starting point, adjusted for weight and deficiency level. 3. Add magnesium. Around 200 to 400 milligrams of a good form like glycinate.
Essential?
4. Add vitamin K2 as MK7, usually around 100 micrograms for every 5,000 IU of D3.
Good ratio.
And 5. Take it all with your biggest meal of the day, one that contains some fat because it increases absorption by over 30%.
That is the gold standard protocol. Do that and you will see results.
Before we wrap up, let's hit one final question that I see everywhere online. The weight loss connection. Does vitamin D make you lose weight?
It is not a magic fat burner. You're not going to take a pill and wake up skinny. It doesn't work that way.
I figured.
However, a deficiency creates what I call metabolic friction. Low vitamin D is strongly linked to insulin resistance and higher parathyroid hormone levels, both of which can promote fat storage, especially around the middle. Correcting your D levels is like taking the parking brake off your metabolism. It allows your diet and exercise efforts to actually work more effectively.
So it facilitates the process. It doesn't do the work for you.
Exactly. It creates a metabolically favorable environment for fat loss to occur.
This has been a massive download of information. I feel like we've gone from eat your fortified cereal to understanding, literally, genomic regulation.
It's incredibly empowering when you realize that you can manipulate your genetic expression and your energy levels with such a simple, safe intervention. You really start to feel like you can take control of your own health.
So here is the final thought, the action plan. If you have felt any of the signs we talked about today, the deep fatigue, the aching bones, the recurring colds, the low mood, don't just guess. Don't just run out and buy a supplement. Get the data. Get tested.
Test, don't guess, and listen to your body's whispers before they are forced to become shouts.
If you found this deep dive valuable, if you want to keep understanding your biology at this level and optimize your life, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. We are going to keep peeling back the layers on health, technology, and everything in between.
Join us. Let's keep learning.